Hey everybody, this is Jason Ostrowski, and welcome to another episode of the Everything Real Estate Podcast. Today we're going to have a conversation with Lehigh Valley legend Mick Seislove, team leader from the Mick Seislove Team and the Macungie office, and we're going to talk about and focus on Mick's work in the community and his passion to help the people around him, his tireless efforts, and how that impacts his real estate business as a whole. We're also going to talk about Mick's hunger and drive to continue to be a successful real estate agent, how to collaborate with your team and make your office a better place, and just what motivates Mick to get up every day and be the best real estate agent that he can be and do what he can do for his community. So let's get right into it with Mick. We had a great conversation this week, and we'll pick it up on the other side. All right, I'm here today with Mick Seislove from the Macungie office, and Mick, you and I have never met face-to-face until we were out at the convention this past week, and we got to talking, and I found out I was blown away, number one, that you listened to the podcast. I was very honored and privileged to hear you say that. But I was really excited then after we actually stopped speaking and we went our separate ways that I was like, you know what? I should have asked Mick to come on the podcast. And so, when I got home, I followed up with you and you agreed to come on. So I'm really excited to have you here today. And we're going to talk a little bit about a lot of stuff, but I want to talk primarily about your involvement in your community and the impact that you make locally. And so first and foremost, Mick, how you doing today? Hope all is well up there in Macungie.
Well, thank you, Jason. It was an honor to meet you out in Louisville. And my point wasn't to get on a podcast with you, but I just want to let you know how much I appreciate, listening to you in the morning, you and Jimmy Burgess and Darren Hardy and Brian Buffini. So you're one of my top four. So,
man, I'll tell you what, that's some good company to be in. And I truly appreciate that from you, coming from you especially. So I want to get right into it with you because you grew up in the East Penn School District. You lived your whole life in the Macungie area, if I'm correct. And you have been engaged in supporting your hometown for years. And we're going to get into some of that. But your colleagues lovingly refer to you as Macungie Mick. So I'm told. So what does that nickname mean to you?
Well, it means a lot. I mean, my parents and my in-laws are both still living in the Macungie area. I mean, I lived my entire, 57 years in the borough. But more importantly, I became part of the borough and giving back after I left as I started the real estate business. Being in the business almost 33 years, and never really driving more than 3 miles to work since I started. It's just a real treat.
I'll tell you what, I got to say, just an aside, I used to have to drive an hour to get to work, and I can appreciate how great it is to have, the office within 3 miles and your surrounding area there. So from what I can gather now, in your past, you've always been a part of the fabric of the community. In fact, I've been told by my sources that you were once a police officer prior to getting into real estate. Is that correct?
Well, I should have found out what your resources were before I volunteered for this. Yeah, but I did. I went. I was an ambulance person. I was a firefighter, a police officer, a public works. Eventually, the local borough manager, and in fact, my first 15 years part-time with real estate, I was a borough manager at the time. And I left about 18 years ago now full-time. So 33 years total.
That's amazing. So you've always had a drive to be a part of your community. And you certainly, have made your impact through the years and earned your nickname as Macungie Mick, as we talked about. I'm always curious. I always ask this question. So you had your hand in many different areas, being a policeman, being a borough manager. What drove you to get into real estate then?
Well, I believe when you look back at the professions and volunteering, those are all service-oriented businesses. And I really believe that's what real estate is. We serve. And I think there's a strong connection. And I knew once I was in the business part-time that it was going to be my future. So I really believe that giving back is the best thing we can do, whether it's directly to to our clients or to the community in whole.
So, it's late 80s. In fact, it's 1989. So I have to ask the question, follow up to that question. Did you have a mullet on your first business card?
I still have that business card. In fact, it's funny. I walk in some houses now, and I've been giving, their business cards or calendars, and I swear to God, this is 25 years later, and somebody will say, "Here's your business card," or they're cleaning out their house to move, and they still have my original business card. So be careful how many of those are out there. I already went to listings, and they might have 10 calendars down, and so the pictures are definitely getting further apart now. But the mustache was on the first one, and the long brown hair. But yeah, those days are gone.
For some reason, I can picture you with Patrick Swayze-esque hair from like Roadhouse. You know what I mean?
Something like that. I wouldn't quite go that far.
All right. So flash forward to today, and you've been in business for 33 years now. And you have a large, consistently top producing team that's earned a place in Fox and Roach's elite circle as one of the top 25 teams in the company, which obviously you should be very proud of. And you still take great pride in being heavily invested in your own community. So how has serving your community and the people around you made an impact on your own personal business? How has that affected your real estate business?
Well, first of all, I can't take the full credit for that. I'm very fortunate. I started out with the Fretz Realty, a smaller company that has since joined the Pat White Company, which since joined Fox and Roach. And when I joined the Fretzes way back in the late 80s, they were a company that they gave back to the community. And I was fortunate that they went with the Pats, and the Pats continuing to be my leaders in giving back. They were super, and I couldn't be more delighted then when eventually Fox and Roach came on, and we all believed in that same type of mentality in our business was based on charity and giving back to the community.
So some of the things that you've been involved in, and I always do this. I always Google stalk everybody. So I'm looking and doing my research on you. And and one thing that jumps out at me, because I am guilty of feeling like I just don't have the time to get involved in all the things that I would like to do. And then I look at what you do, and some of those things are being a member of various causes like the Ben Yorgi Foundation. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
It is, yep.
100 people who care, or participating in local events. You're always doing something in the community. So it can be very time consuming. How do you find the time to do all that you do outside of your real estate business when you're always consumed and busy with the real estate side?
There again, it has to be a passion. And the Ben Yorgi Foundation has been going on for about 15 years. It's a foundation that myself and a few family members of Ben Yorgi had started up for dealing with a young man that had some special needs and passed away, and was very special to our Macungie community. And we thought we had to give something back. So we were able to now give awards each year to a graduating student with intellectual disabilities from different high schools, and be recognized at their high school graduation. And it's been a passion. And again, my office took to that, and I've been maybe the driver for it, but the office and the community falls behind that. And we never looked at it as a way to get business, but just being involved. They see how you care, how you're passionate about it. And if you're passionate about what you do, they see that. The point that I'm driving at here is that I know, Mick, you do not do these things to get business from them. But the point that I'm driving at is that you have a commitment to service. And I think people get to know, like, and trust you through that commitment to service. They see your passion and they see your authenticity. And obviously, the more people that you meet in the community, the stronger bonds that you have with those people. And eventually they want to do business with you. And so you're kind of doing business without doing business, which to me is the best way to build your business.
is to, to sell without selling, as we always say. That's not the driver. You're out to help people first, and the business kind of follows along. And I really respect that about you, about what your team does. I was reading a little bit about your team members and what they do. It's all really impressive. And from afar, I've always known the name Mick Seislove, but I've never, gotten to meet you and get into it with you a little bit. And I really admire that about you. So I don't want to make this loving on Mick Seislove podcast, but I do really respect that. And I've also heard that you've spearheaded programs at local parks, that you're out there picking weeds and doing stuff. Is that true?
At the Macungie Park, it's a nonprofit park. It's not owned by the municipality, so it's no tax dollars. So there again, there's a lot of volunteers. I'm one of many, and I head my office, but they all come out. I mean, it's unbelievable. Sometimes you just need that driver, and when you have an office that wants to give, it makes it very easy. You talked about the 100 people that care also, and I think it's another group that we started up about 3-4 years ago. We meet 3 times a year. We have about 100 to 125 members, and we bring 3 nonprofits in, and they speak. And at the end of the night, each member has to write a $100 check to one of the nonprofits. So in about an hour's time, we raise anywhere between $10,000 to $13,000. So I always said that's a little bit. It's all business owners and even friends of the community, and it's networking by accident, and it's a great night. In the last 3 years, we raised over $100,000 to other nonprofits, and everybody's busy. I mean, they always say you want to get something done, ask the busiest person, they'll get it done, and I really believe that. As a realtor, we enjoy being busy, or we wouldn't be in the business. I mean, we get a high of when we're not doing anything, what's going on? We're dead. But when we're busy, we get this weird high, and it's even after 30 years, it didn't go away.
Yeah. And, I understand the addiction to, it's just like anything else. Helping people becomes, one of those things in your life that once you start out doing that, it's hard to stop. My question to you is, do you sleep? Because I don't know if you get enough sleep now. I'm kind of worried about you, all these things that you do, Well,
that's probably the biggest weakness, especially with, Rajiv and Brad putting out this Fit Fox Drive and making us get up at 6 o'clock and getting on but no, if there's a weakness, that's probably the sleep is probably the weakness. But, what they say, if you love what you're doing, you never have to work a day in your life. And that's been my life.
Yeah, absolutely. So if all this stuff wasn't enough in the community, you're a big client appreciation event guy too. So can we talk a little bit about, not only the community, but your client base? What type of events do you hold every year? How do you show your appreciation for your clients and your loyal customers?
Well, there again, the advantage of never moving away from your hometown. I mean, I have a client base that I feel very confident in, that about 500 people, and it's just not a sphere. I mean, it's people that I know that if they're going to list their house, I got a pretty good chance. And if I don't see my sign in the yard, I'm going to be pretty upset. But to do that, you just can't send a calendar to them once a year, or a newsletter every other month, which we do those kind of things. But it's knowing what they're doing. I mean, on Facebook, just being around the events in the park, on the car shows, and getting yourself out there. But when it comes to client events, I think Macungie office does a great job. Our biggest event is we have an event. I just left the meeting September 30th. It's called the Oktoberfest in September 30th. But we have 500 people there last year, and about 20 agents participate. Out of those 500 people, I'm lucky to have probably about 100 of my clients that go each year. And it's to the point that when they get there, they even start knowing each other. So it's when you repeat things, you can't just do it 1 year. You have to do it year after year, and just be aware of that. And when you're there, get out there and talk to them, and just be yourself. I mean, people think that you're too busy. If they think you're too busy, they're not going to give you the business. So you can't tell them how busy you are. They don't want to hear it. They just want to know. They like the Mick that gets out and does all the social stuff, all the fun stuff. They don't care if I'm here at 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning. They just want to know that I'm there for them in the social events.
Yeah. And, those events become like you had said, I love the consistency part of it because, for instance, I held a first annual client appreciation event this year, and we actually had a really good turnout. I was surprised by how many people we had, but I'm playing the long game with that. Like, I want people to enjoy themselves year after year, build that base of people that come out, get more people involved. And it seems like you're already doing that in Macungie, and you're making it an office-wide thing, which is really cool. You're kind of like the Pied Piper with that,
I think sometimes people think, especially new agents, they say, well, I don't know 20 people. I don't know 50 people will come. I think it's important, even if you have to talk to other people in your office, maybe you get together with 3 or 4 other people and maybe you only have, 5 or 10 people and invite them, and start the first year with only 5 people. It doesn't have to be 50 people. And eventually you start watching it grow. And as a new agent, just watch what the successful agents are doing and watch how that can grow with them. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And that actually leads me to my next question, because we were talking a little bit off audio on this before we started, that, being in the business as long as you've been in, you see what works, you see what doesn't work. And obviously you've been very successful in your career. So what advice would you give to those agents starting out right now that are listening to this podcast, that are listening to you right now? Or what pearls of wisdom would you tell your younger realtor self in order to be successful? What do you think is important in your career and driving your success?
Well, as I said in my office, a good friend gave me a plaque last year, and it said, stay hungry and stay humble. So that didn't change. I said, if you're in the first year, and also when we were at Louisville, Jimmy Burgess's class, he made a statement that when he started, he was the person that turned the locks. And I thought that was so important to know. When you're first starting, you got to be the first person in, and you got to be the first person leave. I didn't go to college. I'm far from the smartest person in this company, but I know I can be the hardest working person. So I think that new agent has to do whatever it takes to do that. And we see some people saying, "Oh, we don't know what to do. We don't know any clients yet." There is so much to do every day, and I'm sure you're the same way. Every day, there's not enough hours in the day, and don't be afraid to watch the experienced agent. Just watch what they do, talk to them, take them to lunch. People that are successful, and this happened for me when I was younger, go and take them to lunch, have coffee with them. They don't mind talking. They like talking about themselves too. So I think take a little bit from each person. So we're very fortunate in our business to have, and it doesn't have to be a Fox and Roach agent. It can be a Remax, Coldwell Banker. It doesn't matter. I also pride myself in being the agent that other agents want to work with. And you don't do that by not helping other people. And I really believe that if you're young, don't be afraid to put the hours in. I do mostly listings now and have a great team and 2 very qualified part-time assistants that, totally carry my butt. When you asked me earlier, how do you find the time? If it wasn't for my 2 assistants, I wouldn't find the time. And I think there's 2 assistants, my assistants underneath you and your team underneath you have to have the same passion that you do with what you believe in. They're very involved with my charity work. So Mick Seislove gets a lot of credit. I say this all the time, but the people behind the scenes know that it's the people that they're the people that make it happen.
I'll tell you what, you are so speaking my language right now, because I truly feel that the successful agents, the ones who do it year in, year out, always have that hunger. It doesn't matter, like you had said, your educational background. I had some health issues, so I never graduated from college. I got into real estate and just loved it right away, and had a passion for it, had a hunger to succeed in it, and to give as much as I can in my day to my profession and getting better. And I think you have to wake up, and something has to motivate you. It could be your family. You could be a single mom like my mom was, and raising me as a single mother and having to provide for me. And you could be someone who just is very goal oriented. You could be someone who wants the accolades, right? Someone who aspires to be very competitive and beat their colleagues. It doesn't matter, but you have to have that hunger and that drive, but you also have to love what you do. And you talk about your team, and it seems like they work as a cohesive unit with you to achieve your goals, you know?
I think also, you know, like you said, I didn't have to worry about making it out of college. I barely made it out of high school. But anyway, but I think that the drive was that, like, now, we talked about your podcast. I mean, I think every day you have to drive to keep on learning, and the podcasts are my favorite, you know, my favorite way to keep on stepping it up. After I've been a Buffini person for 10 years, but, you know, after 32 years, I took a one-on-one coaching because I think you can always improve yourself, and, you know, what's the next step? So you can't, when you look back when we first started this business 30 some years ago, and we were carrying those big books around and, you know, going and picking up keys, it has changed. And again, I'm not a computer person, so but if you can't do it yourself, then hire somebody that can do it.
Yeah, that's great advice too, because I, you know, and that's one of my questions was going to be with the technological changes. You know, it's not easy. You know, when I even being in the business 15 years, when I first started, we were typing contracts on typewriters, and there were still carbons, and it's like it seems like a prehistoric age where, like, we were cavemen realtors, you know, kind of doing our business, and now things are so different, but you consistently, you know, keep your success level at a certain point. And it's very impressive to see, because if you don't keep up with the times, or you don't find somebody to do it, we always talk about it, your business is going to start to fall. And so, you know, I think that's great words of wisdom if you can't do it, hire somebody else who can. And I know in your office, I know you're also a big collaborator and a contributor, a sharer of ideas with your colleagues. You know, can you talk about why that's important to you? Because I want to make this point, because when you do become a big producer, and I'm not casting any aspersions on anybody, but I think we all know people that do a lot of business. Maybe they have a little bit of diva-ness to them. Maybe they feel like they don't need to talk to their colleagues, or they're off doing their own thing, and, you know, they're not contributing to the office maybe in that way that other people would. But you definitely still do that. So why is that important to you?
Well, as I said before, the Pats, Don and Doug, and later Brad, I mean, they've always been open to talk to anybody, very giving back to even the other agents and people below them. And I'm very blessed to have Barb Hodig, my manager, and she pushes for people to help each other in the office. And it just makes it so easy when you have people that are trying, whether they're, you know, she doesn't care if it's a first year person or a 30-year person, she gives them the same attention. And I think our agents have follow that. And it's important to me, like, if somebody comes up and if they have questions regarding a multiple offer, I mean, we've all been there. I don't know how agents in smaller offices without having a network around them in the office, how they do business. I mean, we're very blessed by Fox and Roach and have the tools we have and the managers we have. Take advantage of them. So I think it's our job as agents to help them out also. And I think you'll find that across the board with Fox and Roach. I really do.
Yeah, I always go back to my first experience of writing offers earlier in my career and the help that I had. And like you said, God knows where I would be if I didn't have people that kind of led the way for me early in my career. You know, I know people know that my mother's been in the business, but my mother went out of her way, in a good way, not to help me in the beginning of my career. Sure, she would give me advice, but, like, it was kind of like, you need to learn these things on your own. Like, she was not going to baby me, and that certainly helped me in my career. But, you know, the old adage, it takes a village, right? And I feel like if we are starting out, that we do need to give back to those younger agents and help them, because we were all there at one point, you know, and we all started out in the same place. And I feel like it's very important to contribute to the overall health of the office and the agents involved. And also it raises the level of professionalism too. You had mentioned before that, you know, you want to be someone that other agents want to work with. And I've always told agents that you're going to have, if you're around long enough, like you are, Mick, or, you know, hopefully I am, that you're going to have a reputation in this business, and it's going to be a good or a bad one. Which one do you want to have? And I would much prefer to have a good reputation and have people want to work with me. And I think part of that is being the professional that you should be, knowing your knowledge base, and expanding your horizons a little bit, learning as much as you can. I think the way that we do that is by talking to each other and giving people different scenarios and all that stuff. So, do you want to touch upon that a little more, or how do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's so true. I said, everybody has an ego. I mean, we tell each other we don't have an ego, but there's nothing more that motivates me or builds me up than just the other day, a young agent, been in the business 3-4 years, and we were doing a deal. And at the end of the day, at the end of our conversation, she said, I really appreciate, I've heard so many good things about you, and I really appreciate how you work with me and everything. There's nothing more that motivates me than that being said. Because that means the word's out there, we're doing our job. And I think the business is tough enough, especially right now with everything going on, that we have to work together. And I think that for the most part, the realtors have really want to do that together. We're doing multiple offers, and I feel for the buyer's agents. I'm a listing person. So, I see, 60, 70 homes a year that I list. Those buyers are seeing, 60, 70 homes a month. So it's a big difference, and you have to feel for them. But I think if you work together, it just makes at the end of the day, at the transaction, when people are laughing at the settlement table, that's when you did a good job. It's not about winning; it's getting a fair price, making sure it's a fair transaction. And if you do that enough times, that should be your goal.
Yeah, and you just said the magic word in my opinion. You said fairness. And that is one thing in this market that I think where we fall down a lot of times is agents get overwhelmed with, on the listing side, let's say, right? You bring a buyer, you see a property, you are one of 30 offers that are going to be given on this property. And many times, agents don't follow up with you. They make a decision without telling you. They don't circle back with you. And you feel cut out of the business, and you feel like you've been treated unfairly. And one of the things that I feel like, just me personally, we mentioned we were out at the convention. Monday night, I was up calling people at 10:30 at night to just let them know, hey, we appreciate your offer, but, we did take another offer. I always try and call people back. I always try and give them an opportunity to enhance their offer if they want to do that before we make a decision. And even if I have to call 20 different agents to do that, I feel like it's a part of being fair in this market. And so I feel like that's very, very important, because we do feel for the buyer agents. It is not easy out there right now. And so I'm glad that you brought that up. So I want to circle back and talk about, now you had mentioned this earlier, because I think one of the things that I really love about the fact that you strive to keep learning and expanding your business, you mentioned you listen to a lot of podcasts. I know this being one of them, but let's touch base about that a little bit more. You mentioned a few earlier. What real estate podcast do you listen to, so agents out there can kind of get your thoughts on it?
You mean other than yours, of course?
Yes, of course, mine.
Again, not everybody's a Brian Buffini member, but you don't have to be a member to listen to his podcast. He's twice a week now. It's real estate related, but it's also life related, and it's called Now the Good Life. So I think he's awesome. Darren Daly. Again, not everybody's a Darren fan. I Darren Daly every day. So so he's awesome. And I just recently, probably in the last 6 months, started with Jimmy Burgess, and he seems to be, he might have took a couple steps up the ladder. And I got to meet him out at the convention. It's super. And just a little plug for the convention, especially this year, we changed the format a little bit, but the networking was awesome. And I think it's so cool that, if it wasn't for plays like that, I got to meet you that day. I got to meet Jimmy out there. And if you have a chance to go, if you're not going to the convention, really consider it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the coolest thing to me is it doesn't matter where the convention is. You could put it in, Siberia. You still get to be with your peers, have a great time. I met a lot of people that are on the podcast face to face for the first time, Jimmy being one of them. And some others that I've had on, and from Fox and Roach. And it was just such a great experience meeting those people. And I will say, I don't get awestruck too often, but I was pretty awestruck around Jimmy Burr just because I just admire what he does. His knowledge base and his experience is pretty crazy. And he's great at what he does. But, meeting Alan Dalton out there, that was a true pleasure. And some of these people and just what they know is pretty incredible. So you're right. The convention's a great opportunity to network with people that maybe you hear about, but you haven't had a chance to meet yet, and you meet them out there.
I think the podcast also, when you have a passion like I think we do about the business and about just in general about life, I think the podcast, when you meet those people that have that same passion, and whether it's you or Jimmy, you get that same feeling that they love what they're doing. And that encourages me to step it up, saying, hey, there's always a bigger fish. So I'm very humbled by going out there and seeing, and just seeing what Fox and Roach is all about and PHHS is all about. It's amazing.
It's pretty cool. It is a great experience. So, all right. So I have a couple more questions. Let's talk about just the future of real estate now. You've been in it for a while. You see kind of where the tides go. You kind of can extrapolate what the future is going to look like. How do you feel the future of real estate is going to go when, we see a lot of technology and automation come into our business, and it seems like there are always entities trying to either disrupt or even put us out of business. What do you see the future of real estate being in the near term?
Well, I feel very strongly about this only because I'm not technical, and I really feel this has been my success. Was I'm a relationship person and I'm a Buffini person, so it's all about relationships. I mean, I was at an interview yesterday for a listing, an 86-year-old, 85-year-old couple, and we talked for about an hour and a half. I've never left there feeling better. Whether I'll get the listing or not, I probably will. But just to have that hour and a half conversation, some of our competitors that aren't that way, it's not going to interfere with us. So again, I'm not sure where the next 10, 15 years ago, but I feel very strongly the rest of my career, the next 5 years, 6 years, I think we're as strong as ever. The relationships are going to mean more than ever. We got through COVID, and I think we just got closer to each other. And we had, my best year ever was during COVID, and it wasn't because I was even being remote. I was still relationship. So I talked to clients every day, and we came out even closer. So I think that's what the young agents, if there's one, technology is important, but if you're going to go technology relationship, you can't beat the relationship.
Yep. I totally agree. And that's why, I have this kind of scenario in my head where, we see a lot of times where maybe you have a relationship with somebody. This speaks to relationships. Let's put it that way. Is that you may have a relationship with somebody, and let's say their son or their daughter gets their real estate license. They're going to give them the business, because of that relationship. And the same thing goes for us. If we build strong relationships with our client base, that's always going to trump, in my opinion, technology or, the newest fad that comes down the line. And I know Brian Buffini is a big relationship guy. He always talks about that real estate doesn't change in that sense. It's very relational. And I think one of the things that we talked about today is just your relationship, not only with your community, but your clients, and how it's going to continue to drive your business well into the future. So I got one last question for you, Mick. All right. So you grew up in the Lehigh Valley. It's close to you. So it's a hot summer's day, and you have to choose between Dorney Park or Wildwater Kingdom. Which one are you taking? You can't have both. You got to choose one or the other on a hot summer's day.
Well, I guess I'd be a Dorney Park guy. I don't know if I would want to see me anywhere near a swimsuit, but I'd go and just hang out, walk around, and see people smiling. And as long as people are having fun around you, you're smiling with them. So I'd go.
You can still go on the log flume, so you can still potentially be around water. I was a wild water kingdom guy. Put me in the wave pool for an hour and I'm good. So
there you go.
Well, Mick, it was such a pleasure talking to you and getting to know you a little bit better. And I think you have a lot of words of wisdom to give to our agents out there. And I thank you for your time. It was truly a pleasure today.
Jason, it was a true honor, and I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
All right, Mick. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
That was the interview with Mick Seislove. We thank him for his time, and he was just a great guy to talk to. Has such a positive outlook on things, and I truly respect what he does for the community. So a couple takeaways I had from my conversation with Mick. Number one, first and foremost, Mick sees real estate as a service industry, and I think that's how we should approach things. He talked about other jobs that he had previous to real estate, all involved his community. How could he serve his community, be a part of the community? And he also saw real estate as an opportunity or an extension of service towards the community as a whole. How can he help people find their next home? How can he help people be happy? How can he help serve the people around him? And in return, it has made for a very successful real estate career. Mick leads not by trying to be salesy, not by trying to gain business, but how can he help people? And that is what drives his business. Which leads me to point number two, that if this speaks to you and this speaks to the way that you want to carry yourself and your business as maybe a newer or a younger agent out there, then find ways to get involved in your community. It doesn't always have to be the way that Mick does it, or I do it, or somebody else does it out there. Find your own path, find what works for you, get passionate about something, and let that lead your business. Last thing I want to say is, despite Mick's success in real estate, he is always out there trying to learn. He is sharing ideas with his colleagues. He is a collaborator. He is a leader. He is heavily involved with his office and helping them get out there in the community and do good work. I think that we can all take a page from Mick's book and never stop learning, never stop collaborating. Make those around you better. In an industry where we can be very competitive, we can be very secretive about what we do. Mick is out there sharing with people in his success, and it helps to lift those around him and make them better agents. And I think that's vitally important for us to follow Mick's lead and do that with the others around us. And just makes for a better office, a better experience, and a tighter-knit group of agents. Well, that's the podcast for this week. I thank you for listening, and we'll be back in another couple of weeks with a new topic, a new guest. And as always, if you want to hear something that we haven't covered yet, please reach out to me at jason.ostrowski@foxroach.com. And if you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, be sure to do so. Also, leave us a review. It helps us to reach more people. And until next time, this is Jason Ostrowski saying stay safe out there, stay selling, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Everything Real Estate Podcast.